Beloved, welcome back to the shop. I'm going to share with you the 10 things that I do to my power saws when I'm done for the season cutting firewood. Now we'll go over gear and kit that you need if you recently purchased a chainsaw, the things that you need to go to complement that to do felling and wood cutting, and we'll go over some pro tips and some things I've learned along the way. I've had two neighbors that were professional fallers. Actually, my old neighbor Russell, he ran a pro crew, or falling crew, and cut in the big trees of the Pacific Northwest. And he filed saws for a living, and I learned a lot of things from him. And both guys told me the same thing. Take your air filter off and blow compressed air out. Now make sure you protect this. You don't want to blow stuff into your carburetor, obviously, but blow from the outside. These steel filters are very well made and it can be reused over and over again. Also clear out, make sure you blow all this sort of thing out. Check your pull rope and just make sure that if you got any sap or anything, make sure you blow all this out as well, because this is how the saw cools itself. Once you get that all done, then you pull the bar off. It's a good idea to have two bars for your saw. I run a 32-inch primarily, but I've got a 36-inch if I need to get into big saws. 3 chains per bar. Now, I've got two 36s here because I don't run them very often, but for my primary, my 32, I have 4 chains. I like round file. Now, they're going to ask you when you buy saws, when you buy chains, if you want a round or a chisel. This is gasoline. Of course, you should never do this in the shop. It's very dangerous. But the thing that I learned from the old guys was there's a lot of resin and such that get into your chains, and you want to start off with a clean chain. So the first thing I do is any chains that I used, I'm going to put them in here, and I'm going to let these guys soak a little bit. An essential piece of kit every pro hoe is going to want to have is get yourself an oil drain pan, a metal one. Plastic ones, I don't know what it is about it, but they just don't last. The metal ones are good. It's a parts cleaner, and when you combine that with a solvent brush, these are just two things that, and you can get away with anything, you can clean up pretty much anything. But just let that sit in there. If you can let it sit for overnight, it really does all the work for you. But these aren't too bad. Go through them and clean off all that sap. We want those to be nice and clean before we start filing on them. Pay special attention to this end of your bar, actually both ends. You see these little channels right there? That's how the saw oils the bar. Those are oil channels, and they're on both sides. That way you can, if you see a bar upside down, you can flip it. It'll work both ways. It's made to do that so that you can get more life out of the saw. But really pay attention to those channels in there, and especially the grooves here. Make sure those are all cleaned out. On the other side, old bars used to have a little hole right there, and some do. I think the Windsors still do, where you can actually grease them. There's a sprocket in here. This is all sealed bearing now, so they don't worry about that anymore. They don't even put a place to oil those, so that's one thing you don't have to worry about. Make sure you get in there and get that cleaned out. That'll all get gunked up. You want this to be free flowing and moving nice and easy. Shouldn't be any friction there at all. If the gas won't cut that sap, just take a razor blade and just clean that up. I tend to see them on the bottom leading edge of the bar. Here's a pro tip. I know sometimes it's a struggle. There's different chain sizes and such, but all the information you need stamped right on your bar. It'll give you your chain size as well as how many links you'll need. So if you order professional saws from a shop, they'll ask you how many links, and you can look like a smart guy there and tell them exactly what you want. Once you get all that sap cleaned out of there, take your compressed air and run the full length of the groove of the bar. And flip it. Do that on both sides. Now, if you don't have compressed air, you can just get a small, like a dental pick, and you can go through there. You'll be surprised at how much grease and oil gets stuck up in that bar groove. I'll show you the no-nonsense way how professional guys file their saws. You don't need a bunch of gimmicks. You don't need all the fancy stuff. What you need is one of these. You need a depth gauge and a flat file, first off, right here. You can buy these in the kits together. If you buy your saws at a pro shop, they'll know what you're talking about. And you start with a new file each time. When I saw the old filers, they wouldn't fool around with saving saw files. These are consumables. The guys that were really good at it, they used one file per chain and they tossed it. They weren't wasting time with it. I'll keep a file for 3 or 4 chains. I don't seems to work just fine. But this is what you need right here. This is what the pros carry. Actually, this is all they carry, and they'll do this when they get home. But this is it right here: a little flat file, your round file, and your depth gauge. When I've got a bunch of chains to file, I'll take a bar off or use an extra bar, and I'll put it in my vise. Now, if you've got it mounted on a bench like I do here, it seems helpful to rotate it out. You want to make yourself comfortable. It's a tedious process, especially on these long chains. It takes many hours, so you want to be comfortable. And the more comfortable you are in your work position, the better your work is. Let's grab our first chain here. And these are just sparkling clean now. Dry that off. Now I'm going to hang the chain on the bar. If you ever get confused as to which way your chains should go on your bar, I see a lot of guys put them on backwards. Just a quick rule of thumb, they got a point on them, right? The point points to what you're doing, points to your work, points to the fire, points to the wood. Always the point on the top points towards what you're doing. We'll do a couple here together. I start with a paint pen. You can use a Sharpie. Mark your first tooth. That way you know right away when you've gone all the way around. Now we're going to alternate. These teeth, you can see one's on point on this side, one point on this side. So we're going to skip. And really, all you guys got to do is, if you look on the back of that tooth, it's going to have a laser mark on it. That's going to give you your angle. And you're just going to push that through. Push that through there until you get a nice gullet. And you know you're sharp. It should be a cat's claw sharp. It should just be sticky sharp. You know, and try to be consistent. If you're going to run your file across 5 times, you want to try to do that on all of them. Now, that's not realistic. If you hit a rock or something, sometimes you have to file it out more, but that's really all you need to do. Now, where the depth gauge comes in, these right there, some guys call them rakers. It's actually not a raker, and if you look at this tooth, it angles back. So you sharpen it, this gets shorter and this gets taller if you don't deal with it. And what this does is this determines how far you can push down in the wood. So if you want a real aggressive cut, you can actually file those low, but you will bog your saw down. But what this does is this just basically gives you a simple guide. It spans, it sits on the top of the 2 teeth, and it gives you a filing plate right there, where you can file that down perfectly each time. And that's where your flat file comes in. And all you gotta do is just hit that, and you'll see that's a little shiny there, and that's properly set. That's all you got to do. You don't have to do this every time. I'll do it about every other time. Gentlemen, there's nothing wrong with, and I actually encourage you, create a comfortable environment for you to work in your shop. A home away from home. You're out fighting for your life, fighting for your living in a very competitive world. The last thing you need to come home to is to come and live and exist in squalor. I mean, look at the resources that are dedicated. So many women will spend time and money, you know, creating their environment that they like. Well, you have every right to do that as well. Have some good lighting. Have a wood stove. Have an environment that's clean and organized that puts your mind at peace. And the quality of your environment goes directly into your work. If you got to go out and file chainsaws out in the gravel, out in the cold, and you know that's not right. There's no need for that. You know, take a little time. Life is short, and for guys, you know, like myself, I spend a lot of time in my shop. I don't want to be in an environment that is uncomfortable, that is not inspiring. There's no reason why you need to be that way. You know, you're not a beast of burden. You're a person too, and you deserve the respect to have a decent place to live and to work in when you're recouping and you're off time from work. This term has come about that I absolutely detest, man cave. I'm not a caveman. I'm not some Neanderthal knuckle-dragging idiot that needs to be relegated to the deepest, darkest, dankest part of the home to do whatever that I do. Men build everything. We create everything. We're the best and the brightest at everything. The world wouldn't even exist without us. So to tell me that I need to go be in some sort of a man cave, no, I don't need to be a man cave. I need to be in the best room of the house. I mean, we need to take care of our families and put others first. I get that, but you see to yourself first. If you're not happy and you're not content and you're not able to do what you need to do, then the whole family suffers. So the family should be working to support you, not the other way around. You're not just a beast of burden. These chains can really get tangled up and are difficult to get untangled, so what I'll do is I'll fold them in half and then one more time. And then I'll wrap one of those zip ties around. Now I'll color coordinate these. The 32-inch bar gets the red ones, and the 36 gets the green ones. And that way it keeps them sorted, and then you can quickly reach in and grab them, and you're not untangling everything and trying to figure out what you got. 36s are greens, 32s are reds. I just have this little small pouch, just lay them in there. And this will go in your woodcutter kit, and you have all the chains you need, and you don't have to worry about sharpening out in the field. Now we can put our saw back together. I'll show you the simple way to tighten things up. Now before you put your bar back on, this is the adjuster. This is what tightens your chain. This is the hole in your side cover. When you put your scrunch tool through there, that's all that's doing right there. So this is a lot easier if you back this off. You see that pin sliding? Back this off all the way. It makes it a lot easier to put your chain on. Now remember, each time you sharpen your chains, you're going to flip your bar. That way it'll last twice as long. Now you see that pin right there? What's going on is when you tighten this, now that's moving, that's sliding that whole bar to the right. Now again, take special note that these channels, these oil channels, are kept clean. Right there, that's the oil comes through there. And the reason why it's a long bar like that is no matter what position this is in, you'll always pick up that hole. That's the way that works. So what I do is I just put my bar on there like that. Take your chain, remember the points, go to the work, to the fire, to the tree, line it up in that sprocket, and then just lay it in the groove of the bar. Now you see when we tighten, you'll see that start to come up. Just watch that, make sure that when this comes up tight, it'll have a tendency to go out or inside. It won't line up in the bar. Just make sure, and you can do this before you put your cover on if you just want to make sure everything looks good. Get it close. Now a couple things to check here. Make sure these are wear items right here, these little plastic deals. And I'll show you, we'll go over finally in the chainsaw kit what I keep. I keep a few extra with these, and what these do is that it protects that magnesium case. And you can't put them in wrong, they're keyed properly, so make sure you've got those. Sometimes they'll fall out. Make sure your roller's on here, your dogs are tight, and also this will get chewed up. This is the chip deflector. You can see it's got a little bit of wear on there. These are easy to replace. They last a long time, but if this starts to fall off or wear, you can replace that. To adjust your chain tension, what you're looking for, you see that sag right there? You're going to turn this adjuster until you pull that sag out of there. That's basically it. give it a good snap back. If you're using new chains, they will stretch, just like on a motorcycle. You'll have to tighten them a few times, but they'll eventually stop. But that's basically what you're looking for. And make sure you lift up on the bar. It has a tendency to sag, especially on the bigger ones. Lift up that bar, snap it back, and that's all you need. And then tighten up your bar nuts. What is that, metric system? 19 millimeter. Don't over tighten these. I've seen guys pull the studs out of the housing. It doesn't need to be that tight. The only thing left to do is to fuel up your saw, bar oil, keep your saw full. If you're going to store your saw for a long time, empty the fuel tank and then start it and run it dry. That's the best way to store it. And use non-ethanol fuel. Make sure you insist on that. Buy premium non-ethanol fuel and you won't have near as many problems. So let's fuel it up and then we'll finish up by going over my basic kit, everything that you need to do whatever you need to do. Personally, I think it's best to keep the saw full. And we also use our saws a lot. Fill it up. Bar oil in the front. I think, yeah, I'm already full. Okay, let's go over the essential items. Everything you need should pretty much fit in a small crate, milk crate. I remember my granddad always carried his stuff in a milk crate. Primarily because your Dalmar, which has got your combo can, has a tendency to flip over and spill in the back of your truck. By putting it in a milk crate, of course, it doesn't fall out. Your Dalmar, of course, goes with the saw. Your PPE is going to consist of 4 items. Your chainsaw chaps. I think you should wear chainsaw chaps. A hard hat is essential if you're felling, not necessarily if you're just cutting firewood. Your safety glasses or your wire glasses, whatever you prefer, and a good pair of leather gloves. Once you get that taken care of, you're going to have, you want to put together some sort of a basic a faller's belt. And out west, what a faller's belt consists of is a leather belt with you. It's going to have your scrunch tool on there. It's going to be your tool you used for adjusting your saw. If you can hang a tourniquet on there, that's a good idea as well. I like the axe scabbards, the grizzly peak, the aluminum ones, and then a wedge holder of some sort. I carry, if I'm going to fall a big tree, I'll carry 3 big wedges. Now I have extra ones in the case. I carry actually a total of 6. Because boy, you can get in trouble, and it's it's bad when you don't have enough wedges. You run around trying to figure out what to do when you got a big old fur sitting back on your bar. So I carry 6 wedges, and the only other thing I have here in my kit, apart from parts kit, which we'll go over, is I do like these sharpeners. I showed you how to sharpen with just a round file, but really, if this is all that I had, I'd consider myself pretty fortunate. These are made by Stihl, and they are a cheat code for filing saws. I've done videos in the past, but they're worth every bit of money. The more I use them, the more I like them. It is a good idea to carry a few extra parts. This is what I've developed from talking to professional guys to seeing what first-class timber fallers carry, and this is valuable information, this little kit. It's not a lot of things, but it makes all the difference between being able to finish the job or not. I'll show you what's inside. I'm not going to carry this stuff on my person, but I'm going to have it in the truck. Have it in your milk crate. Have an extra scrunch tool. You'll lay it down, you lose it. Paint them orange, and then when you do lay them down, you're more likely to find them. Have a couple of extra set of squishy earplugs. You can't wear over the ears with a hard hat. A carburetor adjustment. This should come with your power saw. An extra pull cord. Those will break. Little Obenoffs there. I don't know exactly why that's in there. A stump vise. If you have a bunch of chains, you don't need this extra weight, but it is nice to have. You'll end up filing on your friend's saw. Not everyone's going to be pro-ho, so you have to pick up the slack. and then a small tackle box parts kit. In there, going to have clutch springs, extra bar nuts. Those are those little rub items I was telling you about. I have seen those go away. I hate to run a saw without those. A pilot bearing and a spark plug. Being two-stroke engine, you know, they have a tendency to foul. And finally, to round out your kit, you want a good axe. Now, the axe that you're going to be using as a woodcutter or feller is going to be quite a bit different than, let's say, you're going to go out and actually harvest wood with an axe. It's going to be a little bit heavier in the head and short-handled. What has been determined to be the perfect length of handle as a pounder of guys that are falling or using wedges is something 18 to 24 inches. This is 24 inches. This is a vintage 4.5 pound head or axe pounder that I put together that I strictly use for pounding wedges. It's got a lot of weight in it, so you can get and choke up on it and really get a lot of power, especially when you get difficult trees. Now, vintage axes are hard to find. They're a little bit custom. If you want something you can just buy off the shelf that's just a good all-arounder. I can't say enough about the Cold Steel Trail Boss. 50, 60 bucks, I think they are now. They might even be less. They used to be 30. You can still get these. It's a classic Hudson Bay pattern. Not ideal for a pounder, but man, it's hard to beat. It's got that short length, it's affordable, and you can get it now. I really, really like this axe. This one here is certainly a winner. We'll wrap up by packing everything together here. I'll show you how I do it. You see how nice the Dolmar, I hate to have Dolmars that flip over. So what I do is I'll take my belt. The hardest part to deal with is the belt. You got a lot of stuff going on here. Just try to lay that in there flat. You can put your axe in your sheath. The other item that's tricky is your chainsaw chaps. And that silly hard hat. Tools, extra chains, your filer, 2 extra wedges, throw your hat on there, and off you go. Forgot me goggles. Keep your goggles in your hat. And that's everything you need. Remember, beloved, Proho is a man of action. He's the man that you can call that can solve any problem that comes up. And a lot of that ability to do that is this preparation work. I learned that from the fire department. You need to have everything sorted, and you need to understand your equipment and make sure it's ready to go. You don't want to be fumbling and bumbling in the middle of the night when a tree falls on your house. You want to have this stuff sorted out in your off time. So sheathe your blades in the back of your truck so you don't undo your work. Throw in your extra bar. You've already got your chain. You got everything in your kit here. It's grab and go. It really is. It's nice to have 2 saws, but if you can't afford 2 saws, just get an extra bar. If you have a tree sit back on you, you can unbolt that power head, leave it there if you have to. I'd rather leave a $150 bar than a $1,200 saw. Or you can put your new bar on there and cut it out. So you don't have to have 2 saws. Nice, but not necessary. The only thing I add to that is I grab a good comprehensive trauma kit, a first aid kit, and that's it. So when I go cut firewood, I don't have to have a big production. I don't need a bunch of stuff. Everything that I need is here. I can do maintenance, basic maintenance on the saw, fuel, bars, everything that I need, axes, is all fits in that milk crate, and it's just grab and go. So pretty simple. This is what I've distilled it down to after a lifetime of cutting firewood with my grandfather and being a certified U.S. Forest Service faller, and I've logged my own land, and I've learned a lot from people that know a lot more than I am, and that's a lot of it. I got to give credit to them. A lot of what I'm sharing is from what I've learned from those guys, which have a whole lot more experience than I do. May God bless you and your families. Please keep my family in your prayers, and we'll see you all on the next video.